gummy bear.
Oh, it's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for March 3rd, 2025 for the next hour or so. Let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 really does seem like the Final Fantasy game fans have been waiting for. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jesse Norris. Thanks for joining me on my first podcast.
Why, hello. The very first one. This is my second.
I did one. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you don't have to boast. You don't have to show off. Hey, well, we're still figuring things out over here, everybody. We're piecing it together. It's going to be another fun day of streaming a whole block of content on Giant Bomb. After this, the GB kids will be hanging out with you, and then they'll hand off to Reichert's Roulette. Who knows? They're going to be able to do what they want on those shows, so it should be fun. We'll see if anyone wants me to come hang out with them. I will if I have the time. Looking forward to it. But Jesse, how have you been?
I've been insanely busy.
Yeah.
There's way too much coming out. Way too much has come out. And I posted about it over the weekend, where it's like it's really weird to just be out of the game release zeitgeist, because by the time everyone was losing their minds enjoying Monster Hunter Wilds, I hadn't played it for 2 weeks. I was already completely done with it. Like just you're always ahead. Like now I'm 25 hours or so into Assassin's Creed Shadows. Well, like it's weird. It's been a weird thing to adjust to over time, because then when you got to talk about it on a show or something, I have to go back and look at what I wrote, because half the time I've started to forget.
Yep. It's really this first part of the year. I think a lot of people were thinking it would, be slow before February, but it was kind of, there was plenty to do in January, and then February did, of course, pop off like crazy, and it's not slowing down, even though I think people are like, oh no, the big games came out in February again. No, there's still plenty happening in March. Things I'm excited about. In fact, the poll question today will be about that. But yeah, how you been otherwise?
Okay, as one can be in this country.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling these days. I'm just kind of, I don't know, rolling with. They're not even punches anymore.
No.
They're devastating blows. But yeah, it's doing what I can.
Personally, fine.
Yeah,
but always full of existential dread.
Yeah, exactly. That's always a good way to start the week. Everybody, we're gonna give you your little dose of existential dread. For me, the weekend got pretty busy because I ended up going to that hockey game. Had a good time. It was a lot of fun. It was very cold, but I was bundled, so I was doing okay till about the third period, where it kept getting colder as like night, because it was a night game. It started at 6 p.m. and it would have been a lot easier to handle had the Red Wings won, and they didn't get hosed on a really just terrible non-call there in the last period. But still, regardless, really glad I went. It was a ton of fun.
They want to do one of those in Miami. I don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get the weather in like the 50 to 60-ish range or something,
it's tough for Miami. It's as low as you get.
Yeah, I think God. Like Tampa Bay might even make more sense. I know they want to do it in Miami though, but they have the tech now to get those ice rinks to run. It just will be a little sweaty, like the rink, so it might feel a little bit different to the players. But so what? You got to entertain the people. Go figure out how to play hockey on this thing. But yeah, it was incredible. One of the coolest live like sporting events I've ever been to. Just like the pageantry of it all. It just looked so cool, so neat. Yeah, and the shoe did a good job. I've been there a couple times. Last time I was there, Jesse, I had a beer bottle thrown at my head by Ohio State fans, because they saw a little bit of the maze of the yellow underneath my shirt where I was trying to hide it. They saw it, and so they let me have it. Now, they didn't hit me or anything. I survived. No beer bottles thrown at me this time. In fact, most people were pretty nice.
Do they sell out glass, or is everything plastic?
They have a lot of cans, actually. They do have a lot of 10. So maybe it's because you can.
I think they hope the price is enough to stop people from heaving them, but it never is.
Oh, no, of course not. All right, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into. Let's start with Clair Obscur Expedition 33 final previews coming out today. You and I both played it, right?
Yep.
I'll just read this quick summarization from IGN here. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a captivating turn-based RPG with a unique premise. A being called the Paintress paints a number each year, causing everyone of that age to die. The story follows members of Expedition 33 sent on a desperate mission to stop the Paintress. The game features compelling, flawed characters who grapple with trauma and loss. The combat system is deep, requiring strategic planning and skillful executions of dodges and parries. Players manage resources, build combos, and leverage character-specific skills and attributes. The game world is visually stunning, and yeah, blah blah blah. I gotta say, I was super impressed with this. I think the sense that I got it, like just from like looking at it, is it's very dramatic. There's a lot of flair. It almost feels, the way I've been describing it to people who've been asking me, is it's like if you could apply a layer of like persona sheen on top of a live action like stage play. Like
Mhm.
the way that the characters move and act is very like motion captured, and then the motion capturing is not trying to be like, let's capture these people in a naturalistic state. It is, let's capture these people like really hamming it up, like really like trying to be like overacting, and it works. It has this like flair to it that I find visually very appealing, and I just kind of couldn't take my eyes off it. On top of that, it is so snappy. I think one thing that is cool, and I think there's probably a lot of RPGs that do this now, but the menus are like rendered as 3D objects in the world. The characters don't see it, at least as far as I'm aware, but they're rendered as like 3D things that can like reflect the light. And because of like the way that they're rendered out, at least, or I believe it's because of the way it's rendered out, they're super snappy. So I like, I'm learning this game, right, Jesse? I'm trying to figure out like what is the right sort of train of going from the real time attack where you can like aim and shoot at somebody
Mhm.
in the turn-based combat, into a normal attack, into one of my spells, and then that spell leads into another spell, and all these things like combo into one another. I'm trying to figure that out, right? So I'm like going into the wrong menu, and my ADHD is such where a lot of times in games I could feel like, oh, I'm messing up. I feel like an idiot. I got to back up. All right, go figure out where I'm going. It's so snappy here and so responsive that I was just like bouncing around, no problem, feeling like, okay, no, I just went to the wrong place. Let's bounce over here real quick. And it has such a visual confidence to it that it like hooked me in there, it engaged me and engrossed me right away, making all that the other aspects of figuring it out a lot easier. So I think they're just getting all the small details right, and I've really been impressed by it. We were talking about it a little bit before we went live, and you mentioned like, hey, like this, you could tell this is a team that scoped properly for the budget that they had, and I noticed that as well. How'd you find the game?
Pretty much, it's extremely French, is how you
Oh
described it.
yeah, without a
Everything's
doubt.
super. It's that weird mix of super serious and really goofy, and just hops between them without a moment's notice. Really pretty. When you're doing the walk in between fight sessions, it feels pretty standard. Like
Well,
you're
I mean,
just walking around like
it's a
these very,
corridor.
yeah, these basic corridors that the main exploration thing that you'll gain from them is just one of the materials you use for upgrading. But
Yeah.
the where they've really spent their time outside of the cutscenes, which look amazing and have really good acting from Daredevil's Charlie Cox and a whole bunch of other people, including an old man, Andy Serkis, who should not be an old man since they're
Hmm.
all supposed to be dead. Um, there's so much proper scope on focusing on the combat, which from an outside glance, it's going to feel repetitive at first, but I do think they really had to do that because of the timing of everything. Because whenever you attack, you need to know when you're going to press A to try and crit or do
Hmm.
extra damage with your attack. And when you're going to get hit, you need to know, all right, these characters can do these 2 or 3 moves against me. So if I'm really low health, I'm just going to try and dodge with B because that's got a
It's got a
much bigger
big
window.
window. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I'm feeling good and I want to parry, and I parry either their one or up to
The
like
right bumper.
multi,
Yep.
yeah. If you parry every part of their attack, whether it's one hit or more, you'll do a big ass counter attack,
Yeah.
and it's just that nice. You've always got that balance because then also You can do the solo aim thing where you point, you try and hit them on a weak point with your gun or your ranged attack, but that uses your action points.
Yes.
And so your other moves build the action points, and then your big ass moves need all the action points. And so there's always that constant dance and micromanaging and a surprising amount of depth to how you make builds for each character. So it's like, I'm going to have everyone focus on fire. And every time I do fire, shit just pops off. But these guys don't get hit by fire. So I've got these characters that aren't like that. And so they can still do stuff against them with electricity or ice. It's a team that really knows and loves classic turn-based role-playing games.
Yeah, and I think that shows throughout. So like the combat is, I think, very, very fun. You mentioned the dodging, the parry. These are real time sort of QTE moves that you're doing in the middle of combat, like Super Mario RPG.
And the occasional jump.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like Super Mario RPG, or Mario and Luigi, I guess is the one that had the jumping. And then like I just think that once you start like getting into the flow of that give and take as you talked about, it's very rewarding. And while it sounds pretty complicated, I think it's not complicated as much as it is like deep. It's like there's depth to the way you can think about it. I grokked it relatively quickly. And then as far as the basic nature of the running down the corridors, I don't know. That's starting to feel like maybe that's going to be back in fashion for RPGs a little bit, because you do have. It's not like, oh, this is the only kind of RPG we were getting. I think when people had those complaints about, and I didn't play Final Fantasy 13 or really Final Fantasy 10, but like people were okay with Final Fantasy 10. I think Final Fantasy 13 also was sort of like this corridor-like RPG where you just kind of run down these hallways and then you get to the next combat scenario. And this feels like that. I think at that time. When it was Final Fantasy doing it, was like, okay, we want Final Fantasy to be more, because this is like the RPG that we get right now. Now it's like, you do have your Baldur's Gate 3s and you have all these options for different kinds of RPGs out there. And so one of them being like, hey, we're a French RPG inspired by that, and we are going to kind of go back to that way of doing things and do it in a way that still looks very stylistic and very refined, even though you could tell like, okay, this is where they decided to save money from their budget. Is we're not going to try to give you this big open world to explore. It works for me. Again, I think that they scoped properly.
Yeah, well, they do have the open world. It's just a world map, and you're like this enormous little thing walking to then get to those areas. Yeah, it's nice. It's that nice mix where you still get a sense of everything being big, but it is that classic RPG style of, okay, here's the world. I'm like 150 feet tall walking along it. Or later on, they show you get that guy who can fly. But then once you get into the area, it was not very confusing. I have seen some people saying they were getting turned around a bit because it wasn't full of waypoints to let you know exactly where to go. I didn't have the issue. Others might. But it's really fun combat backed by really nice graphics, even though what we got was a demo that really feels like once they've polished it up, it'll be out there for everyone, because it literally ends with pre-order now and all that shit on it. It was not a preview build in any way. It was an early demo that only ran at 1080p with a ton of aliasing in it. Once that's out, I think people will see it looks great. It's really fun to play. And my God, is the music good? Like I'm quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think the music, the performances are very good. That's not too surprising. I think this is one of the ones that has Ben Starr in it, which assume might be every game. But
he's a tortured soul who seems to not want to be evil.
Yeah,
from the little bit we see.
I think that it is very, like I said, very dramatic in the way that it looks, but just very dramatic in its storytelling. I do think that it is very sincere. Like there's no irony here at all, and you'll get, it's also pretty, I don't know, violent or displays of violence or lots of blood and gore.
Your leader, there's a guy who immediately gets his head chopped off by Andy Serkis.
Right. So it's like, it's trying to be like, hey, that this successor to this lineage of RPGs, but like, trying to also have a modern stamp on it. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I think it's going to, and I'm not a huge RPG guy, so it's hitting for me. A lot of times I can assume it's like, well, if it's hitting for me, it means the RPG fans won't like it, but I don't think that's the case here. And I want to apologize for mentioning Final Fantasy 10 and 13, because now Chad is arguing about them. So.
It's crazy. I got the Twitch open. Twitch just has ads on the side of the videos now.
Yeah, they got to put ads somewhere.
I had
right?
no idea. No, I had no clue. I always had ad blocker on, and they yelled at me about it, so I turned it off.
Yep.
And there's just some enormous ads. Wow.
There they are. All right. Well, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. Jesse, do you remember when this is coming out? I know it's soon, but
late April on everything series, PS5, PC, and it's day one. Play anywhere, Game Pass.
That's right. All right. So how does it compare to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater?
24th of April.
That's Dan Reichert. You know, it's the kick flips aren't quite as realistic.
It's good. The music's just as good, if not better.
Okay, well, let's not get crazy. Okay, up next, Rockstar acquires a studio founded by the director of LA Noire and The Getaway. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Rockstar Games has announced the acquisition of longtime development partner Video Games Deluxe. The Sydney-based studio, which will be renamed Rockstar Australia, was founded by Brendan McNamara, who previously directed The Getaway for Sony before establishing LA Noire studio Team Bondi. Video Game Deluxe has worked with Rockstar on several games, including the 2017 re-releases of LA Noire, The VR Case Files, and most recently Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. After working together closely over many years, we are excited to have Video Games Deluxe join the team as Rockstar Australia, said Rockstar Games head of publishing Jennifer Colby. It's been an honor to work closely with Rockstar Games this past decade, said McNamara. We are thrilled to be a part of Rockstar Games and to continue our efforts to make the best games possible. Rockstar is currently getting ready to launch Grand Theft Auto 6 for PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, blah, blah, blah. And of course, this is sort of the latest acquisition for Rockstar, who has made other acquisitions in the lines of, hey, we're going to have lots of user-generated content in our games, and we're going to have role-playing, and they've made acquisitions in both of those areas. To me, this feels like bring in this studio to help make sure that maybe the main content of the game that they will continue to put out for GTA Online 2, which we still haven't heard about. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know what that even means at this point, but we can assume that will probably still need official, first team content and not just user generated content. This feels like a way of bolstering that, because it's a team that has done a lot of that kind of stuff, or at least helped spruce up that stuff for them in the past.
Yeah, UGC is pretty much, I think a lot of people realize, a bit of a cheat code where you can just have the audience keep your game going way cheaper than you can. It's the thing that
way more money in the long run. Yeah.
Yep. Especially when you have some form of decent monetization around it, like Fortnite has now and Minecraft has had for a while. Bethesda with their Starfield, they made a much better version of what they had in Fallout and Skyrim, because those were so limited by the hardware at the time. It was like 2 gigs is all you could have. Now you can have like 100 because everything has way more capability. So, and also this is the team. I remember that guy kind of sucked. I don't remember why, but this is the team that fixed up the trilogy. Because I saw some people going, "Oh, they did that," and I was like, "No, they fixed the very bad port job."
Yeah, the original port job was done by something Street. I can't remember.
Rose Street.
Yeah. And that was used a lot of just like really bad standard AI upscaling and
completely lost all the feel and color grading of everything. It was not good.
Mushed together like characters' faces. It was bad. Yes, this is the team that they kind of trust now to make sure that stuff like can actually be shipped. So yeah, I get why they would want them. Talk about Grand Theft Auto 6. As always, people are wondering when this thing is coming out. They continue to say later this year. At a certain point, I feel like they better mean that. Not just because I want to play the game or anything like that. Whatever, I'll play it when it comes out. But because the whole industry is on hold waiting for them to do this. And at a certain point, it's just rude to not give people that information about when you're going to put this game out. You have other companies that are waiting to do their thing because you're going to do your thing, and you know that. So now, of course, the game's done when it's done, right? So if they need to delay it, they'll delay it. But yeah, boy, if the way that they're talking makes it sound like they won't delay it. So we'll see. What do you think?
Man, well, 2K, they gave Mafia the Old Country summer. They gave a month and a day for Borderlands in September. So you would think maybe July or August on Mafia, then September. And then the rumor on GTA is October, which does seem very close to Borderlands. But I don't know. It's weird because Call of Duty is pretty much guaranteed to be October. And that's like the only franchise I think won't bother moving. You got Nintendo stuff, they won't give a shit because they're not getting that game anyway. So they'll just put out whatever they want, whenever they want, no matter what. But for it kind of feels like Fable might have been bonked because they were already doing Outer Worlds 2. And it's like, we don't know. Because when we had Phil on, I joked to him about avoiding Grand Theft Auto 6. And he just was like, yeah, it's a big release. And can't wait for it so that they can make a lot of money, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The way, Fable was like one where it's like the way I heard it was moved up it was moved out. And Outer Worlds 2 was swapped in because of that. So it's like they still want something at that time of the year. But
they've talked before. It's very much they've got their Game Pass release cadence, and only the biggest releases can really influence that. Otherwise, they've got so much, they're just worried about themselves. But GTA 6 is the one so goddamn big that everything that has any type of relationship to it and gameplay at all is like, I don't want to be anywhere near there.
All right, let's keep moving here. Nintendo Switch Online is losing a classic game for the first time. This is from Ian Walker at Polygon. We've become used to the slow edition of Nintendo Classics to the Nintendo Switch Online service since it launched in 2018. But some subscribers will apparently lose access to an old school game on March 28th. Nintendo shared on February 27th that Super Famicom game Super Formation Soccer, known as Super Soccer in the West, will be delisted from the Nintendo Switch Online service in Japan next month. And while no reason was given, the announcement did make a point to mention Super Formation Soccer status as a third-party property. As such, it's possible Nintendo's license to the game simply expired. We've reached out to Nintendo for more information, but did not hear back immediately. Super Formation Soccer was first released on Super Famicom in 1991 by Clock Tower developer Human Entertainment. Blah, blah, blah. Human is no longer around. Blah, blah, someone else owns the property. This is only notable because it's the first one on Nintendo Switch Online. There are other services where like this is pretty standard for the most part. I'm trying to think if there's anything where this is like it's different on everything, right? Because for games with gold and PlayStation Plus's standard tier, the essential tier, I think the games you get each month, you can only get those by signing in and claiming them each month. So like there is this sort of like fence around what is possible to do with those. Then there's the ongoing backlog libraries that exist, and those have frequently had games that shuffle in and out both on Xbox and on PlayStation now. So this just feels like, okay, that's kind of the way these deals work, although I think Nintendo fans might feel a little bit differently because they used to have the virtual console where they could just buy all these games. And now this is the only way to get a lot of these older games on Switch. And so people feel like, well, you took away our choice that we had on the Wii U and everything before that to actually just own these things. So we are kind of counting on you to make sure that these games are available. And so if you let one of these deals lapse, we are going to be losing out. Now, again, I don't know how many people care about Super Soccer, but
the precedent is
it's the precedent, right?
Yeah. It's a scary thing because like Liza P is leaving Game Pass finally after 18 months. Like they'll tend to have pretty long deals on Game Pass.
Especially
generally
for
at least
a game of that scale,
at least a year, something they get in early on. They tend to have at least 12 months, if not 2 years or more. Like I think freaking Batman Arkham Knight, I think Arkham Knight has been in there for 6 or 7 years, and it was going to leave twice and then didn't end up leaving. So you have always this worry that everything that's in there that you wanted to get to, but like most people, you just got an enormous backlog that is damn near impossible to actually keep up with. And especially when new shit keeps coming out, it's just nice to have that peace of mind that this won't leave. You don't really have any of that on PS Plus because when their first party goes in, it still leaves pretty quickly. Microsoft, outside of the license stuff, their first party should stay there. But yeah, everything else is just always subject to it. And it sucks.
Yeah. Yep. And it's, there's these, the corporate view for, the last 10, 15 years has been, let's put up toll booths everywhere we possibly can put a toll booth. And for any kind of content, for anything. And, all these companies have gotten on board with that. And some of them handle a little bit better than others. And we know that this is usually just lip service when Microsoft says, we're giving you choice and if you can buy the game anywhere. It's true. It's true. But we know like they still like have preferences or whatever, and really the preference is making money. But whatever, we know why they say these things, and even if it's a lie, the reason that they say, we still get the choice, so that's nice. But having these toll booths everywhere, at a certain point, it's like, okay, you want me to pay constantly, continually for the rest of my life for the same set of games, mostly. That's absurd. Just take the power in your hands, everybody. These games are available. Yeah, come on. Like the internet's a library. That's what we built it for. Use it that way. This like relying on these companies and the good graces of these companies going forward. You all know this. Come on, we're not doing that. And really, if they wanted me to feel differently, they could behave differently. They don't want me to feel differently. They just want my money. So I'm going to continue feeling this way, and I think you all should too. I really do. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about Call of Duty still coming out to last gen consoles and what that might mean for some of the features in that game right after this. All right, I'm ready this time. Let's get right back into it. Call of Duty is probably still launching a new game on Xbox One and PS4 this year. Charlie Intel on Twitter, the website Charlie Intel, posted Call of Duty 2025 could still release on PS4 and Xbox One per sources. Supporting last gen in 2025 is a wild decision, but the game is in development for the old consoles from what we've heard. This may be a reason as to why there can't be, two big maps in Warzone at the same time. So, this, I don't think it's that wild.
I don't think it's wild at all.
It's on the borderline of maybe next year they might not do it, but even then, I don't think it would be wild if next year Xbox One and PS4 got it. There are millions of people who will play these games on those consoles. That money still spends. So I think it's wild from the perspective of people who are super into Call of Duty, have gotten their new consoles or their new PCs, and do want to have things take advantage of the new hardware as much as it possibly can. And their view is this is holding things back. And there's speculation here. I think this is speculation from Charlie Intel that that this is the reason that there can't be two big maps in Warzone at the same time. There's probably some truth to that. And really, it's like I think that they're like, people have looked deeply into it. It's like, yeah, Warzone specifically is the thing that might be held back because they want to keep supporting that. But like that, that might be supported on last gen consoles longer than the standard Call of Duty releases. So I just wouldn't get your hopes up. Like having the ability to support two maps at a time, to them is not as important as millions of people spending money on that game.
Yeah, I think the reason you will see more and more still come to, at the very least, Xbox One. So pretty much when we had a Ruffy in the Riverside, we had that dev on over the weekend. He was talking about, well, there's an Xbox One version of the game. There's not a PS4. It's because PS4 and PS5 are just different, and you have to port for both. And it was going to cost extra money. We couldn't do it. But the Xbox version essentially just gives you everything. You get Xbox One Series and PC. The main reason this stuff will keep happening is because they're going to make Switch 2 versions. And when you make a Switch 2 version, that'll run on an Xbox One and a PS4. Yeah, that will run on there. You're not far off, if off at all, because you still have more memory bandwidth and all this other stuff, most likely, more power to play with. Like the Switch 2 is going to be the thing that keeps cross-gen going longer and longer for bigger titles. And there's almost no reason for it to not exist for smaller titles because most indies can run on anything.
I mean, it probably just like flows, like probably the Switch 2 probably just inserts right into their chain that they're already using already. So it's like, we have this technology that we've been using to make these games for a very long time. The Call of Duty engine does not suddenly shift massively from one game to the next. It evolves slowly over time, and it evolves to meet their needs. It doesn't evolve to just make the game be able to do things it magically couldn't do before. It evolves to meet the business needs of the people making the game and the business needs of putting it out on Switch 2, as you said, and then continuing to support PS4 and Xbox One. And sort of like, and they do the cost benefit, of course, and the cost to doing that might be, maybe some things don't work as well as they possibly could, but I just don't really see that as like, I don't think it's anything major, really. And even this two map thing, they probably just don't want to have two maps because that's a lot of extra goddamn work. That'd be a lot of work to have two maps going at the same time.
And they've talked about before, like they still have a lot of teams on Call of Duty, but they are doing more stuff. Like Infinity Ward started up a studio in Poland working on supposedly some new open world RPG thing. Like the main thing that will change isn't that Call of Duty will stop coming out as often. It's that there will be more support for doing things outside of Call of Duty. And so when you go bigger, like Fortnite is as big as it gets, and it takes an entire publisher to do that. Like it's all Epic really does anymore is just Fortnite. And for a while, all Activision did was Call of Duty. And they're slightly shifting from that a little bit.
Yeah,
And the main thing, they do all the cloud texture streaming to really take advantage of your new hardware and stuff. You get 4K 120 with way better textures, and the spectacle looks cleaner and all that type of stuff. But for the base gameplay, they're not changing the formula that much. Like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was just a good one of those that took everything they already do, dialed it up to 11 at times, and people had a lot of fun.
Yeah. On the other hand, I get people being like, hey, I've spent a lot of money on these consoles and I want to feel special. I get that. Like, I know maybe it is a little childish, I think, at a certain point, but I get it.
I do. I'm the same way. You and I, we have nice computers. We like taking advantage of them with all the fancy shit. But like, as Matt Piscatella said, like 90% of people that play video games plus don't give a crap. They get maybe 1 or 2 games a year. That's the audience they need to keep pulling in as much as possible into Call of Duty. And that's why they've got their full cross progression between Call of Duty Mobile and Warzone Mobile and all that shit. Like they're desperately trying to keep as many people playing as possible because there aren't that many other ways to replace that revenue if you lose it.
So then what do you think this means for the future of how these companies position the consoles like the Xbox and the PlayStation that rely a lot on people feeling good about spending money because they got something new and special?
It's super anecdotal, but when I look at my kids, they don't care. They just want to play with their friends. And I think the value proposition is going to matter more and more for trying to be like the main anything. And the way they've looked at it, like for a while, they're like, Game Pass will be the thing that grows forever. Cloud will be the thing that grows forever. Problem with cloud is if it does grow, you have to spend more and more to run all of it. And so I think a lot of them, and you'll see more day and date or close to it, like PlayStation has already said, our live service stuff, day and date on PC. The other stuff, they'll probably wait a little bit. You get the multiple launches. But yeah, it's just going to be way more about Nintendo's a unicorn. They get shoved off in their corner and they're always successful doing what they do. But everyone else is very much in we need to be everywhere we can, and we need to very slowly and try to properly push our fan base into it. And then Microsoft just leaks so much that everything comes out early and they're like, shit.
Yeah, you mentioned, like, I don't think, was there ever a time when Nintendo like had no successes? Because like obviously they've had failures, but whenever they have failures, they always had a success. Like the the Wii U, 3DS was doing pretty good. It wasn't doing as good as the DS. That DS was also kind of a unicorn.
By most other people, it would be like, oh, you did 70 million in a generation with a handheld? Pretty good.
Exactly, yes. And then, outside of that, it's like, man, even, I guess, GameCube and N64 during that era, it's like Game Boy and Game Boy Advance were just crushing everything, mostly because of Pokemon. But yeah, they kind of always had something. So now that they've combined both of that into one system now, they've kind of ensured that they will probably be all right for good for quite some time.
Yeah, like the hardware,
the place with Pokemon.
The hardware doesn't match what they used to do, but the software just took off like crazy because it's all there. Yeah. It's all in the one, so people can just get everything they want there.
All right, let's keep moving ahead here. Fans have ported Sonic Unleashed to PC, potentially opening the floodgates to Xbox 360 recompilation. Recompilation? How am I going to say that?
Recompiling?
Recompiling. Let's say that. That sounds better. From Wesley Yinpool at IGN, Xbox 360 recompiling has begun with an unofficial PC port of Sonic Unleashed. Sonic Team's 2008 platformer launched on Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, and Nintendo Wii before a PlayStation 3 version released in 2009. Sega never released a PC version. Now, 17 years later, fans have taken it upon themselves to make a PC port of the Xbox 360 version of their own, dubbed Sonic Unleashed Recompiled. There's even a trailer. This is not a simple port or the game running on PC via emulation. Rather, this is a from-the-ground-up PC version of Sonic Unleashed, which even includes enhancements such as high-resolution support, high frame rate support, and mod support. It also runs on Steam Deck. They built like a native Linux port. So that's what they mean when they say it runs on Steam Deck. They use the kind of more common tool right now, or common skill of static recompiling, which is I don't know how this works, the technical explanation of any of this, but this is what we saw a lot with was happening on N64 with a lot of those games, where they're like, hey, we've taken Majora's Mask, we've basically reverse engineered it, got the C code, the C plus code or whatever it would be, and now we are able to recompile that for other platforms. And now this same method's being applied to other platforms. So here we are on Xbox 360 with Sonic Unleashed, I guess being the first one. Maybe another one's happened that I haven't heard about today. And yeah, that is this is a pretty cool thing, because this just ensures these games will run on PC like in perpetuity. Very exciting.
This is a cool thing, but a weird game to choose for it. Maybe it just
Yes.
worked the best, because I remember Sonic Unleashed being pretty bad even among Sonic fans. But Sonic fans are insane, so I'm not surprised it would be Sonic Unleashed.
Yep. It's I am gonna probably just try this to see it for myself. I do worry, yes, that what this means for Sonic 06. Of course, everybody, we're all worried that they're gonna do that to him, to do that to that game next. We don't need that game preserved. We need it put in prison. But yeah, as Colonel Sanders in chat says, that the Sonic fans just get it done, and this was not on PC, so that's what I guess that's the reason they chose this.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah,
06 should never be anywhere.
What are some Xbox 360 games that should get this treatment, though?
Oh, man, it would be nice if people who have owned things through the Xbox Live Marketplace that aren't available anymore, because they shut that marketplace down finally. If you can yoink those out and preserve them, that would be really cool. Like things that you can't get on PC would be my hope for where they go with this technology. Because unfortunately, as far as I know, Xbox One and Series and stuff has never been hacked. They've got that chip on the motherboard that keeps breaking everything when people try. They're in the early stages of trying to figure out, but on the 360, if you can try and save as many things, don't bother with Kakuto Chojin, but if you can get some of those Xbox Live Arcade games that are just gone forever.
Chat wants Tao Fang, Wet, Blood on the Sand, Lost Odyssey,
whoever said
Blue
Wet,
Dragon.
go take a cold shower.
Yep, franchise. Frenetic Finesse. Excuse me. Saints Row 2. Yeah, Enchanted Arms. Yeah, there's plenty of games that would be very cool.
There's many. We were looking at, because we've got the original Xbox book we did, and it's got every game because there weren't that many. Then we look at the 360, and we're like, oh shit, there's like 7,000 games, which is a third of what Steam gets in a year now. But there's like, we can't list all those in the book. So
and that's how many hentai games the Switch gets every day. So
pretty much,
around 7,000. Yep. I hope that these teams can really just continue to take these tools, refine them, and really get to a point where it is almost automated, where you could just like be like, all right, let's get to the next game, put it into the machine, turn it into spaghetti, and turn that spaghetti back into Sonic 06. So we'll see. It does feel like that is where they're headed. That's kind of what they were like, basically the way it works on N64 now. And I think they just want to like get to all these consoles one by one, probably working their way up to the ones that are the most interesting. N64, a weird one, emulation on that one has never
Xbox
really
360 Fight Club.
Yes.
Have you ever played that? It's
a couple times.
It is the worst thing I've ever played. Not even. It's nothing else is close.
Someone should remind me who this was. I think in my Twitch chat over the weekend when I was playing Grim Fandango, had a new suggestion for Blight Club, where we each take turns playing through a fighting game campaign and call it Round 1 Blight. And I would like to do Fight Club and a handful of other ones.
It's so unbelievably hard because the computer's just so cheap, and then all the cutscenes are just those, like someone's in 3D model maker and they just pose them and then do really bad voiceover. It's amazing to watch. But playing through it, being the one who has to play it, it is maddening. Yeah,
but you get to fight Abraham Lincoln, though. So that's a good time.
Did you know that you are Tyler Durden?
Oh, shoot. I had no idea. Well,
I didn't mean to ruin it. I'm sorry.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, you ruined my whole life. Okay, up next, canceled Twisted Metal live service title was a battle royale featuring out-of-vehicle combat in third person, according to a report. This comes from MP First. Let's see here. It's well known that PlayStation has been on a losing streak with a long list of recently canceled titles, shutting down many projects from its developers after internal restructurings, a list mostly composed of live service games. One of these canceled live service titles was a game based on Twisted Metal, with a classic PlayStation franchise that would have been revived by developer Firesprite with a focus on this multiplayer game model. According to a Bloomberg report last year, the game was canceled after layoffs impacted Firesprite as part of a large restructuring within Sony. Other reports indicated that the game was intended to tie in with the TV adaptation released on Peacock. However, no more details emerged about what we would have seen from the game. The good news is that thanks to the website of a former Firesprite employee, we can learn more details about this game that give us an idea of what it would have been like, along with early development images. And they actually have some images up on this guy's site that like it's kind of like blurry and it says under NDA on them, but you could see there is dudes running around with guns.
As you do in Twisted Metal.
As you do in Twisted Metal. Now, of course, you can get in vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I see what they're going for here, the Battle Royale. It's like, couldn't you just make a Battle Royale where you're just in the car? Like, couldn't that just have been the
already
game?
did it. Beat him to the punch.
Yep, exactly. This is very strange. I do wonder what fans would have expected, but like, hey, Twisted Metal fans, how much can you really demand? Like, beggars can't be choosers at a certain point. But I think they wisely recognized that this was probably not going to work. It would have just been what, at best, the 7th Battle Royale that people choose to play in like order. Like that's really where it would have ended up instead of being like the #1 Twisted Metal game that people want to play. That wasn't going to matter to anybody. So you can kind of see how this idea just naturally led to its own conclusion of getting canceled and never coming out, right?
It's just there's trend chasing works in certain areas. Where it hasn't worked is extraction shooters and battle royales, because they kind of had their moment. They're still big with the ones who got in there right away, and you can't just smash your head into it. Sony definitely really wanted to trend chase, but the biggest thing about all of these big multiplayer games like this are the IP. You just constantly yoink in big real world IP or other game IP and all that type of stuff. And people don't care about it when it's just one thing. Like Fortnite will have anything in it. I think Halo Infinite's a really good game, but Halo Infinite fans won't let them put stupid shit in there, so the game died off. Like, if you can't put in Hatsune Miku and not have your fans revolt, then it has to be that type of dumb shit.
Yep.
That's why I think of all of their things they're doing, the one that has the best chance is that uwu anime style Horizon one, because that is the type of thing you can just throw every dumb. You can put Bleach and God, you should put Ninja Scroll and more stuff. No one puts Ninja Scroll in anything.
Yeah,
probably for good reason.
Yeah, probably because of the
I got the new Blu-ray right there.
Oh, look at that!
I would show it to you, but naked ladies are on the cover.
Yeah, of course, Ninja Scroll.
Yeah.
I think that Twisted Metal could have worked this way. I think that this game probably could have been fun, but in the way that what is the boss key game, the one that wasn't the Lawbreakers?
Oh, Radical Heights.
Radical Heights. Like that's it would have been more, like obviously a higher quality in terms of.
Well, you know what they have to do? They have to start small, find something that hits. Yeah. And then expand it. That's what all the biggest ones have been. PUBG wasn't PUBG what it is now. Like PUBG Mobile India is one of the biggest games in the goddamn world. No one talks about it. Yeah. But when PUBG was huge, it started really small and it got bigger. And everyone just keeps going, okay, especially this dumb fucks at WB right now. We're going to make less but bigger. It's like, no, like Matt Booty, say what you want about him. Like the focus over there was, yeah, we'll have our big stuff, but also we see Balatro and we see Abiotic Factor and we see all these games that are 1, 2, 10, 20 guys. Like Sony saw it with the Chinese game I can't remember the name of that was just at the show. That looks really cool. That was one guy. Yeah, it was one guy and now he's got a team of like 30 or 40. Like having the small stuff, find something that hits and then build it. That is the way. It's not have the Suicide Squad game where if it doesn't hit, you're toast. Like,
and this goes back to the earlier conversation about user-generated content, right? Because it is much more difficult even to be like, okay, let's make a bunch of small stuff ourselves, have a bunch of small teams. Like that's great, do that. I want to see that. That is a fantastic idea. But you are still then going to be up against any platform that can just have anyone make any idea and let the best rise to the top. and it can make money, and then it makes money for you. And yeah, that's just when you have that sort of power behind it of the crowd, the wisdom of the crowd, it is so much more effective. And this is why, Steam makes so much money just letting anyone in there make a game, and there's so much trash, but the one that rises to the top is going to take over the entire gaming world, and in 5 years every game is going to look like that game and play like that game. It's happened multiple times now. And then, obviously Roblox being a similar model, but like in a walled garden, and now Fortnite doing the same thing, and Minecraft doing that thing for years now. It is very difficult to sort of compete with that, which is why I think a lot of these big companies do say things like bigger and fewer. So like that is the one advantage we have. And this goes back to that Phil Spencer letter that I always refer to. That was, I think, leaked. I think it was a leaked letter during the Activision investigations and all that stuff before they were letting the deal go through. Where he said back in the day, these companies could just command retail because that's how people got games. And they had deals with retail, so their game would be on the shelf, and that is what mattered. That's what set them apart. And so they didn't have to do anything else. They didn't have to have a relationship with their consumers. They didn't have to try a bunch of different ideas. They could just spend a lot of money on a game, put it in retail, and that was their first mover advantage that they had. Now you can get a game from anywhere, and anyone can put a game out anywhere. And in that world, these big companies saying fewer and bigger looks insane, because then your bets are massive, and the risk is massive compared to thousands of little teams all trying different ideas. The next one that could be the big thing, the next trend that you're going to be chasing in 4 to 5 years. So yeah, it just is at this point madness when you hear that from like someone like WB. And in the meantime, I can see why Sony gets to a point where it's like, let's try to chase these trends and see it's not working. And at least they like pulled the plug on this one before it became another embarrassment. But at the same time, like, I don't know what you do with Twisted Metal other than something like this. It felt like a decent fit, other than, just put out another. It's like the Star Fox problem, right? Just to put out another Star Fox, I guess, that plays like the first 2 Star Foxes, put out another Twisted Metal that plays like the first 5 Twisted Metals. They don't really have a good answer here, but they have a TV show and they want to find some synergy. So they're kind of a tough place. Do you think there's a world where they can figure out older games like that and make them work? It sounds like that's something they're interested in.
It's, the main thing we always hear about that most companies really struggle with is scope and project management.
Yeah.
They just have to, because like they're not carried by their first party. They never really have been. They've always just been the default enormous third party everyone goes to get some stuff. And that has its goods and its bads. You sell a lot of hardware, but you don't get as much software attach rate like Nintendo does, into a surprising extent Microsoft does on Xbox. They have solid attach rates compared to their hardware sales. And then Nintendo's just freaking crazy.
Right.
The main thing they need to do is, like when we saw in the Insomniac leak, they're looking at Hellblade 2 and they're like, we want to have that level of fidelity and everything. It's like, no, Hellblade was like 80 people with a smaller budget, really focused on doing a thing. Whether you liked it or not, they weren't going for an enormous Marvel game. And so when you just keep going bigger and bigger and bigger, even if the games do great, like Spider-Man 2 sold a ton, but it just costs so much more. So they need to find a way. And they had built up the expectations of their audience by having all those constant big hits to end the last gen. They need to figure out a way to keep their own costs down while putting out more and more. It's not easy, but it's also just, it's a mind shift. Like, you have to change your mindset, which I think they've started doing. So
I think so too. Yeah. All right, last couple of stories here. Guitar Hero mobile ad appears on Activision's Instagram with obvious AI art. This is from Grant Taylor Hill at Insider Gaming. It was recently noticed that an advertisement for a new Guitar Hero mobile title had been surreptitiously uploaded to Activision's official Instagram channel. While the post has since been hidden, it can still be accessed if you have the link. The ad, which bears shockingly obvious AI art, claims that a new Guitar Hero mobile game will be released in 2025. Fans of the franchise were quick to criticize the use of AI art, which is staring you in the face from the post on Instagram. This isn't the first time, even in the last few weeks, that Activision has drawn criticism for using AI art in games. You can see it up here on the screen now, everybody. Yeah, I think you just look at the audience and you can see it.
what do you mean?
At a certain point, these companies have to realize it's like, okay, you're saving money on labor, sure, but you keep finding yourself in a situation where you are making stuff that people hate looking at for whatever reason, whether it is a predisposition against AI because they for whatever reason, or they actually legitimately don't like the way it looks. It doesn't matter. People don't like it. It has this backlash, and then the people that do like it don't like it any more than anything else. So they're not voicing their opinion, right? Because they're not like, oh, I love this. Because of course, no one is like falling in love with this AI art. And so the only voices that fill the room for the people making these decisions is going to be people who hate this stuff. At a certain point, you just got to stop doing it, right? It just is not worth it at a certain point, right?
For all of us, we know, yes. But for Activision, I don't think they care.
Yeah, it's Activision, huh? That's where we go back to. Okay. Yeah, I think that these and I say all that, and then their answer to that would be, well, we're just going to make the AI better so that you don't.
It's all over Black Ops, like six-fingered Santa, zombie guy. It just there's a look to generative AI that's just always there, and it's real easy to tell them like, oh yeah, we start with this, but then we have people touch it up, and they think that's good enough.
Yep.
And then we all know eventually it'll be like, well, it's gotten so good, we don't need to touch it up anymore, so you're fired.
As far as Guitar Hero Mobile goes, let's read from VGC here. Adverts for Guitar Hero Mobile, Call of Duty Zombie Defender, and Crash Bandicoot Brawl have recently been appearing on the company's social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram. While the adverts initially appear to serve as new product announcements, their use of generative AI for promotional artwork quickly raised doubts about whether this was actually the case. It seems that initial doubts were well-founded, as some of the ads featured links to mocked-up app stores. When users then attempt to download the product, they're met with a message explaining the true nature of the ad. It reads, "Thanks for your interest. This isn't a real game, but could be someday. We'd love if you could answer this short survey, which could help inform the potential future of this game. Your feedback really matters to us." According to one advert, Guitar Hero Mobile is a fast-paced, competitive mobile rhythm game where players face off in real-time music battles, hitting notes in sync with the music to climb the global leaderboards and become the ultimate rock star. Call of Duty Zombie Defender is a top-down tactical mobile defense game where players build defenses and fight off waves of zombies in an iconic post-apocalyptic world, reads another. And a third reads, Crash Bandicoot Brawl is a fast-paced round survival game where 30-plus contestants compete against one another in wacky platforming, puzzle-solving, and obstacle course challenges. Activision recently confirmed its teams use generative AI tools to help developers develop some in-game assets for Call of Duty, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I think what this is saying is that Activision themselves are making fake ads for games that don't exist because they want to see how many people click on them so that they then know if they should actually release or make the games. What the fuck is going on?
Instead of doing leak trial balloons, they're just doing them directly themselves because, as I said, Activision doesn't give a shit. They don't care.
They're by far the most nihilistic video game publisher we've ever had. Nothing matters. It's all just do anything, poke the people with something, and if they start if they squirm in a way that seems like they might give us money, then give them more of that juice. This is really gross and stupid.
I don't know if it'll ever change now that they've been bought, but while they were being bought, they just almost doubled, if not doubled, their headcount, knowing most of those people would probably be fired.
Yep.
Thankfully, it hasn't happened as much, but it did happen a lot, and they didn't give a shit. I know Microsoft's all in on AI. But they always try and talk the talk. We're in on AI and generating stuff, but we won't do a ton of generation. But then obviously, a company they own is just doing it.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, if I could, instead of having him on as a celebration of an episode hitting a milestone, if I could do an interview with Phil or anyone there, it would really be. They probably wouldn't give a good answer, but I really want to know what the hell the thought process on all the AI shit at Activision is.
Yep. And the way it works.
This guy stinks.
Thank you very much, Jan. And the way it works at Activision, or Microsoft, I should say, is that all these acquired big studios, at least for the most part, are kind of operating in their own silos, especially Activision right now. But Bethesda is its own company with its own sort of like progression path through promotions and things like that
No.
separate. And if you want to like go from a studio underneath Bethesda over to someone at Microsoft Game Studios, it's actually kind of difficult still. It's not just like this,
No,
walk
it's a
down the hallway.
full-on process.
It's a completely different process because they are on different paths.
It was
a lot of the seniority doesn't carry over and things like that.
It is a little better because I did see quite a few
Yes.
people that got fired at Arcane ended up in like Blizzard and some other places. It's not perfect.
It has begun to shift recently, yes. And so you wonder, it's like, is that the long-term story of Activision where Microsoft slowly brings it in? But at this point, all these corporations.
Activision just makes most of their money now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They don't want to rock it too much because they're the way they work.
Becomes more like Activision, yeah.
Every company, every developer is its own company that has to pay for itself, is essentially the way it is. You're all your own business, and Activision's just going to always be paying for itself. So,
all right. Last story here. Hideki Kamiya says he'd still love to make Scalebound one day. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. Former PlayStation Games co-founder Kamiya says he still wants to make Scalebound. The Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, and Okami director left Platinum a year and a half ago and is currently working on a sequel to Okami with his new studio, Clovers Inc. However, a new tweet posted by the official Clovers Inc. account on Twitter suggested that Kamiya still doesn't have the canceled Xbox game Scalebound out of his head yet. The action RPG started development in 2013 with Kamiya as director, and he was working with Xbox. In 2017, Microsoft announced the game had been canceled, however. So Clovers, they got back together over there, and in a video, Kamiya is seen explaining to his colleagues that the protagonist has first they're like apparently all gathered around his computer because he was just like looking at old videos of it, and he was telling stories of the good old days making Scalebound. And he says that the main character has headphones and a smartphone despite being in a fantasy world with dragons. And then someone said, just like an isekai. One of the developers commented, referring to the subgenre of mangas and anime. Yeah, exactly, Kamiya said. That's the big trend right now. The tweet also quotes Kamiya as saying, I'd love to make it again someday. He's got to be trolling us, right? This has got to be a troll.
I would say yes, but on our podcast, your friend and mine, Nick, has intimated there's been talks about it.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like, because now that he's out of Platinum and is looking to like rekindle deals and make stuff happen. You're right. That wouldn't surprise me. What the part that I feel like they're trolling is explaining that's an isekai, as if this is like something like a reveal or something, or like an insightful statement. It just feels like they're putting on a little skit for us as part of like a lead into maybe something else that's happening down the line. I don't know if they would do this if there wasn't something happening, honestly.
And they were we found out they were working with Platinum the whole time.
Yeah.
It was like 7 years ago when they started up Ninja Gaiden 4.
Yeah.
So they didn't seem to be any bad blood.
After what happened. Obviously, that was like that lines up with the timing. That is a make good for Scalebound. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked. They are in the business of, we would like a big game every quarter. They're almost in the business of having a game every month. Yeah. They are, for all the shit they've gotten in the past, rightfully so. They are the one publisher outside of Nintendo that has a path for constantly putting out AA to AAA games. Like a lot of people are struggling to find that funding, because if you put 50 million into something and you get 50 million back, it's just, what's the point, especially when half of them fail. But with that, be everywhere, be on a subscription, be able to be buying it, have it on PC, have it on mobile, have it on cloud, all that type of shit. Yeah. If they can make it work at a reasonable budget, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't.
Excellent. All right, let's get to the poll question from last week. Where are you playing Monster Hunter Wilds? 6% are playing on Xbox, 16% are playing on PlayStation 5, and 17% are playing on PC. 61% of respondents say they're not playing it. So there you go. They just really wanted to answer still. Yeah, that's maybe a little surprising. I guess it's not surprising when you see how like the concurrent numbers for Monster Hunter Wilds on PC. You're like, man, how many more people could really be playing on console? And there are more people in total on console, but it's about equal on PlayStation 5, and then about a third of that number are playing on Xbox. At least based on the respondents for a giant bomb poll.
Yeah, if we take it by it's anecdotal, because you got 4.1 thousand for a game that's probably had like 2-3 million.
And a very specific kind of audience
Yeah.
responding as well.
I would say that Giant Bomb, as a console user, most of my life, Giant Bomb's pretty console heavy.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And although more PC every day, it feels like.
Yep. Everywhere.
Yeah. So there you go, everybody. People. That was a pretty good response for the poll.
It does not run like a dream on anything. I do not believe that person.
Yeah. All right. That does it for that poll question. We have a new poll question we'll get to here in a second. Before we do, though, Jesse Norris, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at xboxera.com. Had a preview for Clair Obscur go up today. We've got our Split Fiction review premiering tomorrow, and then we'll have a little show right after it. You can see up at the top there, our main thing is the Patreon, because as you guys know, you can't make jack shit with advertising money anymore online. So that's it. We do reviews, previews. I'm the reviews editor. I do lots of reviews working on Assassin's Creed Shadow. Have another little preview dropping later this week. We have lots and lots of shit. So please take a look.
Yep. Check them out, everybody. Thank you so much, Jesse. Let's see here. New poll question I have in front of me. Which March release are you most looking forward to getting? 2 Point Museum, Split Fiction, Assassin's Creed Shadows, or Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster?
I have one of those, so I can't answer.
There you go. 2 Point Museum, I'm really looking forward to that right now after Mike talking it up. I haven't had time for it, though.
Yeah, our reviewer liked it quite a bit.
Yeah,
it's
Fiction.
Familiar. If you've played the 2 Point stuff lately, it's pretty familiar, but it's a good familiar.
Spliction, Jan's played that. A bunch of people that I've talked to have played it. Everyone seems to really enjoy it. So we'll see. That game's out very soon. I mean, 2 Point Museum's out tomorrow.
Tamori for
exactly.
Spliction.
And then Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster. We'll see. We'll see, because that game's been a long time coming. People have been waiting for it, so there'll be a lot of hype for it. And then Assassin's Creed Shadows. We'll see. I'm looking forward to trying that one out myself. All right. That is the poll question. Jesse Norris, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
That was fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for watching and listening. You're the best audience in gaming. If you are watching live, please stick around. It's GB Kids up next. We're going to do a handoff here in a second. This is how the show works now, right? We go from one show right into the next. That's how it works, these content blocks. It's been going really well so far. It's been a lot of work. We're going to figure out some ways to make it as smooth as possible. We're going to spruce everything up a little bit, give everything just a little bit of love, feed it, water it, see if it grows. So we'd love if you kind of helped us out with that, watched along. So far, everyone seems to be really enjoying it. And so when you see other faces, new faces pop up, just say hi, welcome in and say, hey, you're streaming on Giant Bomb. Great, that's fantastic. It went really well the other day with the GameSpot folks doing exactly that. So let's keep that energy going. All right. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.